Hello and welcome to another episode of the Trash Talk Podcast. I'm your host, Sergej.
Hello.
Today, we're gonna talk about Last Thursdayism and the Boltzman Brain, and if Last Thursdayism is true, then this is the first podcast we've ever recorded.
That's true. Yes, yeah.
Well, actually...
And if you are, in fact, a Boltzman Brain, then there haven't been any podcasts recorded ever.
I mean, I guess it does bring up the question of, if we all remember it, is it real? But I guess before we go into that, we should probably actually tell the people what in the world we're even talking about. Because I feel like most people haven't heard of these things.
Probably not, no.
Do you want me to start with Last Thursdayism? Do you want to explain the Boltzman Brain? How do you want to start this?
I don't know. I think Last Thursdayism is a bit easier to explain, so let's start with that.
Okay. Last Thursdayism is a very simple concept. It just posits that the world was created last Thursday with all of the humans in it, with all of their memories just being created on last Thursday, right? So the reason why you remember things that happened before last Thursday and why we see evidence of things that had happened before last Thursday is because they were created as such, right? And the whole idea of why this hypothesis, conspiracy theory, whatever you want to call it, exists is kind of to point out the sort of ridiculousness of irrefutable statements, right? So it's a whole idea basically against creationism. So creationism is tricky because they tend to adjust their arguments as needed to support their position. And one of the things that often is used to try to debunk creationism is the fossil record, right? Which shows that the Earth has existed for a while, and so their response will usually just be, well, God created the Earth with the fossils in it. It's like, okay, right? But that's not very helpful. So
yeah,
that's kind of a Last Thursdayism, is just taking that sort of idea to the extreme.
I haven't really thought about or heard people mention it in this context. I only thought about it heard about it in a philosophical sense that you cannot prove that it is not true. As in a sort of even actual possibility in physics that it might actually be the case. Similar to the Boltzman Brain. What are you looking up? Is my audio fucked?
No, your audio is fine. I was trying to see if it does seem like this was created in response to the same thing. I was trying to look up Last Thursdayism because I had thought that it was in response to creationism, but I realized I don't think I've ever heard anyone say it. Because the argument is so similar to the whole fossil record argument that I was like, this is obviously a parody of that. Kind of like how the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster is just a parody of religion.
Oh, yeah.
By making the same arguments that they are, but because they're making them about something that people don't already have an invested belief in, you can see how ridiculous the arguments are. And so, this is, the thing is, I put Last Thursdayism into Wikipedia and it links me to the Omphalos hypothesis, which is one attempt to reconcile the scientific evidence that the Earth is billions of years old with a literal interpretation of the Genesis creation narrative, which implies that the Earth is only a few thousand years old. Which, by the way, it's already not literally because they're combining sources there to make that happen, but...
Okay.
So yeah, this is an attempt to... the idea is named after, blah, blah, blah... in which Goose argued that in order for the world to be functional, God must have created the Earth with mountains and canyons, trees with growth rings, Adam and Eve with fully grown hair, fingernails, and navels, and living creatures with fully formed evolutionary features, and therefore no empirical evidence about the age of the Earth or universe can be taken as reliable. So it's basically what I said, right? Like the creationism argument, which then inspired Last Thursdayism. So it says, because it links to the criticisms, and it says... although Goose's original Omphalos hypothesis specifies a popular creation story, others have proposed that the idea does not preclude creation as recently as 5 minutes ago, including memories of times before this created in situ, which I don't know what that means. This idea is sometimes called Last Thursdayism by its opponents, as in the world might as well have been created last Thursday. In situ means a Latin phrase that translates
apparently,
to on site.
So apparently there is actually an article on Wikipedia about Last Thursdayism, also titled Last Thursdayism, but it's only available in German and Spanish. So I don't know what's up with that.
That'll do it. I mean, I looked at the English Wikipedia, that's my default, because generally speaking, it's usually the most comprehensive. If I had looked up something specific about like German history or politics, I might have looked at the German version. But I mean, Spanish not very useful.
I just typed in Last Thursdayism Wikipedia in DuckDuckGo, and that was the result of that.
What?
Anyway, so now that we have an explanation for Last Thursdayism,
yeah. Sorry for going into that whole dive on the history, but like the moment that came up, I was actually genuinely curious if that was the case or not.
Yeah, I've never heard of it, that it was like created as a response to that, but pretty interesting. So anyway, Boltzman Brain, similar idea, but instead of the whole universe being created, a single brain is created out of like, I don't know, a universe that is past the heat death through random fluctuations in all the atoms, whatever. Either quantum or just through regular old physics. And that brain is constructed with all the memories and perception of like it having lived a whole lifetime or like part of it or whatever, and experiencing something in that moment. And then just as quickly deteriorating again into nothingness.
Yeah.
That is the basic idea of it.
So one thing to specify here, I think, is that we're not talking about a human brain as we understand it to necessarily come into existence spontaneously, but rather that sort of particles interact in a way that represents thought patterns, I think, right? You're not saying there's literally like a
no. An actual literal brain forms for like a split second.
I guess technically anything
out of nothingness,
happen, but that is
for like nothingness, through just like random atoms floating around in basically a vacuum.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that is actually that could happen. Like it would take like a ridiculously long amount of time, like millions and billions of years, for it to happen, but it might actually happen. There is a non-zero possibility of it happening.
Just based on the statistics, it will take that long to happen, right? But it could technically happen at any moment.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
that is.
So yeah.
And the thing with that is, because like heat death of the universe is a quite likely end to the universe as we know it. It will not really end after that. It will just exist in this state forever, up to infinity.
Yeah. So
and
sorry. So go ahead.
Yeah. And just through it being such a long time, namely infinite, there is an infinite amount of Boltzman brains that will be formed after the heat death of the universe.
Okay. So
making it very, very unlikely that we're actually real human beings.
Which that kind of reminds me of simulation theory, which is very closely related as well.
Yeah. Kind of is.
We did an episode on that, or I did an episode on that with Smokey. Link to that is I'll forget it anyways. But it's on the channel.
If you didn't, then it's gonna be up there somewhere.
I genuinely most of the time do, but that's fair enough. So the fact of the heat of the universe, for those that don't know, is the idea that as the universe goes on over like very large spans of time, because it is slowly expanding, there will be more space and particles will be less incentivized to move, basically, because particles over time entropy will win, so particles will be uniformly distributed across the universe, more or less, because random movement over long enough periods of time will genuinely evenly distribute them. And so, as there's more space, there will be fewer interactions between the particles, and thereby the universe will effectively cease to exist as we understand it, but it will still exist in that form where not a lot of interaction is happening, which is also why I guess it is so unlikely that something so complex would form, because of the sheer amount of particles that need to interact when normally they would be very far apart. But given that we are talking about possibly infinite time span, there's no reason why it couldn't happen.
Yeah.
So
Last Thursdayism is also kind of related to that, because the guy Boltzman actually proposed that as a solution to like the second law of thermodynamics, where some guys propose it as not being a statistical law, but like an actual law where it has to be this way.
Wait, the second law of thermodynamics is that in a closed system, no energy can be created or destroyed, right?
Wait. Am I mixing stuff up here?
I mean,
One
maybe
second, let me look that up.
Second law
shit.
of thermodynamics. Oh no, that's the entropy one, right? Second law of thermodynamics.
Okay.
In other words, establishes the concept of entropy. It is a physical property of thermodynamic systems. Blah blah blah. It can be used to predict whether processes are forbidden despite obeying the requirement of conservation of energy as expressed in the first law. Sorry, first law of thermodynamics is the conservation of energy. I got them mixed up.
Okay, good. So one good physicist, whatever, had the theory that the second law of thermodynamics was absolute rather than statistical, and Boltzmann was kind of against that idea, and so much stuff to remember and explain accurately. Never mind. I'm just drop this here before I dig my grave any further.
Yeah. Well, what was it? If you find yourself in a hole, the first thing is to stop digging.
Yeah.
So, the first thing that I thought of when you explained to me the Boltzman Brain before the podcast was the very famous quote by... Wait, oh god! I looked this up like a couple days back. René Descartes, I think it was, who said "Cogito ergo sum," which means "I think, therefore I am." Now it has been criticized, and it has been said that that to call the thinker "I" is a little bit presumptuous in itself. But the idea is that something is thinking, right? And so that idea kind of the idea is that since our senses could technically be lied to in some way, we can't guarantee that our perception of reality does in fact match reality. And then so the thought goes if we doubt everything, what can we be certain of? And that's where that idea comes from, right? Something is doubting, so something is thinking, so something exists. And that's kind of almost, I feel like, sort of the philosophical counterpart to the Boltzmann Brain, right? Where it's because it's saying something exists, right? That's the one thing we can be certain of. And if it were a Boltzmann Brain, bless you, then we would only be able to be certain that something exists, right? Because the rest of our perception would actually be fake. So, sort of, if you take the cogito ergo sum idea to the extreme, then the Boltzmann Brain is kind of the result, right? Where it's everything is fake except for the fact that something is thinking.
Yeah, I guess that's true. But is it possible to fake even that? I'm not sure.
I mean, then you get into the philosophical question of what constitutes thinking, right? Because at the end of the day, it is just a sort of biochemical, electrical process. it's complicated because I think synapses both communicate with electricity. I think it's electricity within the synapses and then chemical stuff between them.
I think so, yeah.
But anyways, so
I think,
it's a chemical and physical process. It's physics and chemistry, basically, that are happening in your brain that lead for you to process stimuli and conceive things of a certain way. And so, technically, we can break human cognition down to those processes now. I don't think we have like a full model of how every part of the brain works and how. So it's not that we could 100% map and predict it, but we do kind of know that you can break it all down into those concepts. So the question is, right, does that constitute thought, right? And that's how we colloquially define it. And so if you had a computer simulate a brain, right, it would experience the same processes. So would it be thinking, right? Or is it just a simulation of thought? And so that's really much more of a philosophical question than anything else, because if you have a computer brain,
also like
computer program that functions as a brain, it should be equivalent to a brain. So go ahead.
So like similar idea with the China brain, where like every person in China simulates a single neuron, like walkie-talkies or whatever.
Okay, elaborate.
The goal is to simulate a brain, or like a small portion of one, through every person in China, acting as a single neuron each.
Okay. Who's planning this?
It also is a thought experiment.
Okay. I was about to say that seems weird. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, there's a lot of people there.
Would that constitute thought or not, or like I don't know.
I was about to say, this is getting to a point where, like, I like philosophizing as much as the next guy, but there comes a point where I can only ask questions. I can't even begin to postulate answers. So I think Last Thursdayism kind of, and the Boltzman Brain for that matter, kind of get into the idea of, what is real, what can we take as solid evidence, and that is, we kind of talked about this before, like the radical doubt, right, from Descartes, and that sort of idea where what can we take for granted, and then we do get into the different schools of epistemology. I think it is the pursuit of truth, right, where you have your sort of science is very based in evidence, but it is fundamentally still based on things that we perceive. Even if we use machines to take measurements, we're still kind of trusting that our perception of the readout is accurate, which, we're getting into, but philosophically speaking, there can be made an argument if you go with the radical doubt route that none of that is even real. Or it could at the very least be that none of that is real. And so it really asks, like, what can we take for granted? And then I think for practical purposes, we just have to ask, like, where does it make sense to draw the line, right? Rather than asking where would we have to draw the line if we wanted to, like, be as sure as we can be. But at the end of the day, if we try to do science, but the only thing we can take for granted is that something exists, we can't really do a lot of science with that. And so...
Not really. I don't think you can do any science with that. Except maybe, like, Boolean algebra or something.
Yeah, you get it to... I think you have to start with... I guess you could develop math, but because you have to kind of take observations of the world on some level for granted, right? We know in science as well that our senses can tell us something that is not real, and so we do account for that as best we can. But I think we just kind of have to work with what we got. I mean, there's a whole different philosophical question, which is applies to both simulation theory and to this, which is, at some point, does it practically matter? Because our perception of life is one way, and while I generally appreciate truth as a value, right, I think striving for truth is a good thing. But at the end of the day, we have to live the best lives we can in the world as we experience it, right? So I find that the idea there is interesting to philosophize about, but fundamentally we have to make decisions based on the reality as we know it, and we can't make decisions with that sort of abstract in mind, because fundamentally it's just not helpful for navigating the world as we perceive it.
Doesn't really add anything, any way to alter your decisions.
Yeah.
Or like doesn't provide any additional information or anything to base your decisions off of.
I mean, I guess in Last Thursdayism, it wouldn't technically even have to affect your decisions. It would kind of affect how we see the universe, but the lives we live, at least from this point forward, are the same as they would be in sort of the world as we understand it. But with something like the Boltzman Brain or a simulation hypothesis, you get into, we get into those sort of ideas of like, would our behavior be affected by us living in a simulation? For a lot of people, I think it would affect their behavior, knowing that they live in a simulation. But I don't think it should. Because fundamentally, all of our ideas
I don't think so.
Of morality and stuff, which I guess is what would be questioned most, still apply equally. Because if the world is a simulation and I'm the only one plugged in, that changes things, right? But if everyone is plugged in...
Oh, yeah.
Or even if everyone is simulated, but in such a sophisticated level that they do have self-awareness, right? It's like, then I have to treat them as human beings. And then I have the same moral obligation to them as I would otherwise.
I mean, I guess it would change some people's behavior in that they would attempt to escape, maybe.
Yes.
But I don't think it should change the behavior otherwise in other aspects.
I mean, then comes also the aspect of, like, some people are religious. As a matter of fact, most people are religious. So if the entire world is simulation, inherently would have to assume that their religion is false unless they then believe that their beliefs are still true just outside of the simulation. But so there we have a problem because, you know, religious people sometimes ask, like, if you don't believe in God, then what is stopping you from killing people? And it's like, morality, thank you very much. But also, like, if that is the only thing, if your belief in God is the only thing stopping you, then I'm worried what you'll do if you find out that not only is your God not real, but, like, nothing is.
Oh, yeah.
So that would be a doozy. But yeah, no, I think fundamentally these are interesting ideas, and at the end of the day, while the Boltzman Brain especially has sort of this idea of how it's physically feasible to happen, I think it still doesn't really matter much in the day-to-day and still mainly remains in the realm of philosophy in how we can really approach it.
Yeah, I do agree on that.
Anything else?
Yeah, I don't think so. Like before we started, I thought I had so much to say about this topic, but like once we actually did start the podcast, like I don't know.
I mean, I didn't have anything prepared per se.
It's just, yeah.
But this is one of those topics, let's get a bit more meta here, where we have a starting point and we just kind of have to see where the topic takes us, which sometimes is bad because if none of us have an idea of which direction we want to go with it, then it kind of stops, we repeat ourselves a bunch, and that's that. That has occasionally happened. But I knew that I had the whole cookie jar or something, like I mentioned that to you before we started this topic because I was looking into... So it came to mind and I was trying to think of how this topic is interesting, and I was like, oh yeah, obviously, right? Like that thing that immediately came to my mind when you explained the Boltzmann Brain to me, it's obviously something we could actually talk about. And so they kind of... I knew that there was a route to start to weave through, but if there's something else, we can go to that, we can go to epistemology, we can... Like, what even do we take as evidence? I kind of, like, very broadly hit some of those topics. But I, honestly, in the moment, don't have a desire to go that much deeper on any of those in a way that would make sense for the podcast. Right?
Not
so
really,
even if I did want to research more into those, I would have to actually look into them, and that is not something I can like very easily do. I mean,
Yeah.
you saw me skim over a Wikipedia article earlier, and that is always good.
I mean, I've tried to skim one myself while trying to explain stuff, but didn't go so well.
So, that was our topic on Last Thursdayism, which takes us to look at another Wikipedia article, because we're doing Facts of the Week, and my Fact of the Week does contain a Wikipedia article, but I'm going to let you go first, as per usual.
Oh, God, yes. So, since I don't understand my fact, like, completely, take everything I say with a grain of salt. So,
Fact asterisk of the week.
I mean, yeah. So you've heard of these large plastic garbage patches in the ocean?
Yes.
Or in the oceans that are floating around? So one thing I learned recently is that it's not actually just a bunch of big plastic bottles or other things. It's more just a bunch of microplastics that you can't really see with the naked eye.
That's bad, because that's something that's the food chain.
Floating there. Yes, in very, very high concentrations. Yeah, that is one thing that is, I know, that is an actual fact. You can trust that. But the second thing, apparently there are a lot of life forms that live on the surface of the ocean that can't really propel themselves and attach themselves to these big fields, patches of plastic, and live in there, and have adopted quite a bit to this new environment that has formed in the last couple decades.
That's evolution.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know how much they've adapted. I don't know in which ways they've adapted. It's only evolution that happens over generations. And it would normally takes a lot of generations for those to fully adapt to that, something like that. But also smaller life forms too oftentimes have short life cycles, many more generations. Sorry. I just, in case someone's like,
it's still there. Yeah.
Because I don't know anything about this, so I'm just speculating myself.
Yeah, I don't know. So, and these creatures, while also have adapted to look more like the plastic around them, a bit at least. They started out looking kind of similar-ish, but like adapted to look a bit more similar to the plastics, and that is also like at least one of the reasons why other animals sometimes eat plastic.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And like in general, this micro ecosystem, or like whatever you actually call this, I kind of forgot the word for it, is also the reason why it kind of is now ethically dubious to remove these, to remove all this plastic garbage out of the oceans.
The counterpoint to the ethical question is just that microplastics are bad in the food chain, and you could probably remove plastic from the oceans, right? Like,
I mean, yeah, but it would kill like much more life forms than it would actually save.
Would it though?
Yeah, it kind of would.
I mean, there's also the thing that some animals can actually process plastic, which is something that I've learned very recently, which is also wild, but I'm pretty sure humans can't, and we do eat animals that eat the plastics, and that stuff sometimes can just get stuck places, and it's just in our body. I'm sure some of it is excreted through the regular ways, even if we can't process it, but I'm pretty sure I've heard that some of it can just get, like just stays places, and bless you. And
I wouldn't be surprised if there's like a lot of microplastics just circulating in our bloodstream right now.
Yeah, and who knows what long-term health effects it has, right? I think in a lot of ways, the microplastics thing is going to be our generation equivalent of what smoking used to be, except that smoking is the thing that people voluntarily did, even if they weren't necessarily as aware of the consequences. And we can't really avoid microplastics. I mean, I'm sure drinking out of plastic bottles probably doesn't help. But,
True that.
But
there are babies being born with microplastics in them.
Yeah, because it gets passed down from the mother. Yeah,
at birth. Yeah, it's crazy. So yeah, apparently, all the plastic garbage now becomes a human problem rather than a ecosystem problem, which is kind of crazy.
Not just human though, because we talk about other animals eating plastic and choking on it, and like some stuff gets caught in like those rings for 6-packs and stuff. So it's not solely a human problem,
but it is becoming one rather slowly. But it is, I think, is what the paper was trying to say, or at least I interpreted it that way.
I mean, the question also is like, who wrote it, who financed it. There's always I mean, I'm not saying that you're lying or that the paper is lying, but I'm saying that you always have to be a bit careful, because oftentimes papers that are sponsored by companies or individuals that have a certain vested interest in a certain policy decisions being made will often make sure that papers are written that focus more on one side of an argument, which is not inherently bad for scientific papers to focus on one side of the argument. It's just important that we look at that it's not always the entirety of it, and occasionally even scientific papers will lie. It's not that common, and that is what peer review is for, and even if it does pass peer review, they'll still often be retracted later on if someone finds out that it's not true. So the process itself does more or less work. It's just, especially newer papers, have to be taken with a bit of a grain of salt.
Yes. On that note, I will send the link to the paper to you, so you can hopefully remember to put it in the description.
Also, talking about scientific papers, just very briefly, publishing bias is a very big concern of mine, and not a big personal concern, but it's in terms of
publishing bias.
So, because most scientific papers are still published through traditional journals, you have to still get approved for publishing, right? It's not just peer review. They'll also not publish a paper if they think it's not interesting. And so a problem that happens is that oftentimes new research that makes extraordinary claims is more likely to get published because it's more interesting, because people buy the papers more likely. And stuff that just disproves a previous paper is less likely to get published, which means that if you make a crazy claim and make it seem reasonable enough to pass peer review, it's very likely to get published. And if someone then basically tries to disprove you, they are less likely to get published. So there's a bit of a bias in our system, and the scientific journals are basically at fault for that. I understand the motivation of why that happens, and I also, obviously they can't publish everything, but that is a concern, and I hope that gets fixed over time. I know there are some free journals as well where it's easier to publish if you're willing to pay a small fee, and there's more direct ways to publish these days. We can just put it straight on the internet, but then again, that's not peer reviewed and people will not take it seriously, and so it's a whole thing.
Yeah. Big problem.
So, let's talk about something that is, well, actually it was a bit of a problem as well, but it is at least funny. I'm gonna start by reading you the title of this Wikipedia article because it tickles me. Impeachment of the Supreme Court of Appeals of West Virginia. So you know what an impeachment is, right?
I have heard of it like a year ago or something. I forgot what it is though. So
basically, if you're holding an office, especially an elected office, I'm not sure if it can happen for others as well, but if you hold a public office, this is specifically regarding the United States, but similar proceedings do exist in other countries, and you basically break the rules. There's the exact reasons for impeachment differ on different levels and positions, but are usually very vague and kind of up for interpretation anyways. Then the government can basically try to remove you from a position. And then, so the US generally has a bicameral government, both on the state level and the federal level, so you'll have Congress will draft so some people in Congress will draft an impeachment, then the Congress will vote on it, and if they pass it, then it goes to the Senate for a trial, and then they'll hear everyone's opinions basically, and then they then vote to convict or not. Convict in this case just means people can either be, people can be stripped from their position, which is the main thing, and they can also be prevented from ever taking office again.
Okay.
That's basically what it boils down to. And so a Supreme Court, as you may or may not be aware of, generally contains multiple judges. And this article is just titled Impeachment of the Supreme Court of Appeals of West Virginia. Now, there's actually two things about this that are interesting. West Virginia's Supreme Court of Appeals is actually the first level of appeals court. There is no second level. So normally in the US, if you appeal your lawsuit, you go to an appeals court. And then if you appeal it again, you go to the Supreme Court. Right?
Okay.
Not many cases make it there, but they only have one level of appeals court, which is the Supreme Court. I know West Virginia isn't very big. I think that's part of the reason. But that's interesting. It's not really that relevant to this case. It's just that they handle literally every appeal.
Okay.
And there's 5 judges sitting on this court, right? And all 5 of them had an impeachment drafted against them at the same time. So
okay,
that is well to begin.
What the heck happened?
Like, that, as far as I know, is unprecedented. And it sounds very dramatic, but at the end of the day, it's about, basically embezzlement, right? I mean, I don't think we would call it embezzlement in a political sense, because it's more of a company thing, but they basically misattributed their funds, right? Like, they paid people more than they were allowed to, they spent money on things that they probably couldn't have, they took stuff from the office home that they shouldn't have, that sort of stuff. It's not, honestly, that dramatic. It's still something that shouldn't happen, and it's still good that there were consequences for it. As a matter of fact, there probably should be consequences for that sort of stuff more often, because it sounds to me sometimes when you hear stuff about politics that that's a very common practice. I don't know that. I'm not accusing anyone in particular. I'm just saying it sounds like that sort of stuff does happen more often than actually gets prosecuted. But in this case, there was they were all impeached after I think it started with the media finding out about it. Yeah, exactly. So in late 2017, WCHS TV and other media outlets began reporting on spending by Supreme Court of Appeals by the Supreme Court judges. Eventually, investigation by the United States Attorney for the Southern District of West Virginia was launched, and the court was audited by the state's legislative auditor. And then there was an investigation. One of the judges, which I believe was the Chief Justice at the time, Alan Lowry, he was also investigated by the FBI. So, this is pretty serious stuff. One judge retired before he could be impeached. And then 4 of them, I think, all were impeached, but only 3 of them went to trial because one of them was blocked by the Supreme Court. But I think, so that's another thing. The Supreme Court, I don't know all the details there, but I think technically over the trial, like a Supreme Court judge has to preside over the trial, as is defined in West Virginia. And since all of the judges were on trial, that's a whole other kind of worms. But I think they had sort of an interim court that was other judges they had around at the time. I think that's how they got around that somehow. But still, one of them got blocked. And then 3 of them went for trial, and 2 were convicted in the trial. So 2 of them actually got to keep their positions. That's the other thing, right? So 3 of them, at least some others resigned on Wikipedia, but I think, because they are technically considered resigned, I think, when they are impeached. So one of them resigned early, and then 2 of them resigned because they were impeached. And then one of them is still on the court to this day. And, I mean, to be fair, if you weren't technically charged with anything, or if you weren't ever convicted of anything, then there's technically no reason not to. And another one, the trial was blocked. The one that was acquitted was reprimanded, and it says reprimand and censure. So there were still consequences, even though she wasn't kicked off of the court. And yeah, the Chief Justice, who was also investigated by the FBI, was suspended from the court, impeached on 7 charges, convicted of 11 charges, which I don't get how that works. Resigned before being tried, blah, 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 from office, and sentenced to 24 months in prison. And then, one of them retired and was not tried due to an injunction from the temporarily reconstituted Supreme Court. One was impeached on 2 charges, voted not to be removed, and remained on the court. And one was impeached on 2 charges, not tried to do an injunction from the Supreme Court, and remained in the court. And so 2 were actually blocked. One of them resigned though, so it didn't really matter anyways.
Okay.
It ended basically with 2 of the 5 judges being able to keep their job. And only one of them is still sitting on the court because the other one, I think, the term just ran out. So just, you've done your, I think it's supposed to be 12 years. Yeah. Done your 12 years, you're done. Which is apparently how that Supreme Court works. That's also one of those things that's going to be different from state to state. The federal Supreme Court has lifetime appointments, but this one doesn't, so yeah.
Yeah.
I thought this was a wild story mostly because they impeached an entire Supreme Court. Like an entire state Supreme Court was impeached at once. So yeah, that was a wild story.
It is quite wild, yeah.
And you know what's also wild? Scraddle.
Squirrel? Yeah.
We're playing the weekly Scraddle, I believe.
Yes, that's the fun one. With 10 words.
But as mentioned last week, the possible answers in weekly Scraddle has been very slightly expanded. Okay. Okay. Yeah, they are expanded. Click here. Okay, He hid that very well so that people would actually read it. So, I have a suspicion of where we're going to start. Unless you have something better.
Oh, yes. No, I do not.
Hey, we got 2 letters.
Hey.
And no D's. Also still love auto-hiding. It's my favorite thing.
It's so great. It's so good.
So, what are we going to do with this?
We almost have no clues for this.
I mean, I guess we could try the second to last E, because we have both...
Yeah.
Well, I mean, this is obviously the one where they both point at, but we have this E and this E. So, that would be reasonable.
I forgot you can have 2 different hints. This is so great.
Also, your audio is getting a bit weird again.
Oh no.
We don't
Let me restart my audio engine.
At the end, at the very least, we don't want A's in the beginning. We don't know anything about I's, and we don't know about any D's. No D's, so it doesn't end on ED, which I always like, but I guess ES works maybe. I guess we don't really have that much else, huh? We could go... Oh, but there's no E there, is there? Something like, I don't know. Oh, no D's.
Wheels.
Wales! Everyone's favorite. Well, I was gonna say country, but oh god, the UK makes things complicated because kind of, sort of. Just like the word state is a bit complicated thanks to the US, the word country is a bit complicated thanks to the Brits. I don't know if state names count.
Do we really want to test for W? I don't think it's a common letter. Tails.
I mean,
I like that
I was
a lot
considering
more.
sales, but I'm not sure if we need to doubly test S right away.
I don't think so.
And
Pails
was
I like a lot more.
So let's see. Nothing about L's, nothing about P's. The H's couldn't be in first, but it has to be somewhere. And actually, if we keep testing along the diagonal, we get the best information technically.
Oh yeah.
We did want to test those E's, and we wanted to test some S's, so I like this. Yeah, let's go for it. That is a lot of information, but not a lot of hits. By which I mean no hits. I mean, I guess we'll try Central L, huh?
No, doesn't sound like it.
Oh, no, it doesn't sound like an idea because it can't be the central column. Good point.
Yeah. It gotta be one of the last two. At least in the row.
Yep. Okay, let's see.
Also, as usual, a lot of E's.
I mean, yeah, a lot of E's. This fulfills some of those E hints,
Yeah.
possibly. It fulfills one of the L hints, not the other one. Haven't tried T yet, haven't tried N yet.
Yep. I do like it, yeah. Let's go with that.
I don't think there's an obvious letter we could substitute the I for to make this still a word. Which would have been the next thing, right?
Mhm.
Like, just see it as a hint about the first row column, but I don't think we're going quite that
Yeah.
fancy.
Briefly thought about it, but yeah, don't see anything.
Hey, I hit an N. Just
Oh,
we hit
one
an N.
match.
I mean, it seems.
And we know where the L is.
All right, yeah, we know where the L is. Wait, did we say this one was the one for? I forget already.
I don't know. Let's just use this as the for sure one.
Do we know anything else? Well, I mean, it seems very likely right now, and I'm gonna mark it accordingly.
There are also a lot
right
of
there.
L's in here.
Like,
yeah.
I mean, technically,
it does.
We only know that we know that there's at least. Oh no, there's gotta be at least 3, right? Because, yeah, it's gotta be at least 3. Okay, so. Actually, with what we have given, I mean, as we pointed out, the E is most likely in that spot. We said it kind of from the beginning because we're like putting letters at intersections, where like 2 hints intersect towards them. We have the L. We like the E. I guess could always attempt an A is the only other letter that is pointing at the second position there. Nothing is pointing at the first position. Nothing is pointing at the last except for the E's, which we already have accounted for. If we do want LE there, we have to consider what the last letter could be, though. Because normally it would be S or D, which it can't be. Y is always a good one, but that has fewer options. N is technically a possibility.
Yeah.
Unless there's something that blocks it, no. I mean, technically, I guess a lot of them would technically work. Like, but I think N or Y are probably our best shots. Lay. Whenever I think lay, I'm very quickly thinking L-A-Y, which is always a bit tricky. Len, like sullen, but that doesn't fit, obviously. Like... Oof. I was gonna say solemn, but that's MN at the end. Swollen. It's also too long. All the ones I'm coming up with, I think, are too long. Right? There are like 3 letters before LE.
Yeah. That or have 2 E's. The first one being in a position that we have confirmed has no E.
Oh yeah, I mean, the ones I said were swollen, which is S-W-O-L-E-N, and sullen, which I think is S-U-L-L-E-N. Give me just something with Alan. Waylon, Raylan, Talon. I mean, I guess Palin could be a word, as in to grow paler, but the P obviously is already blocked. Salem. Salem? No, I don't like it. Phelan, Galen, Halen, Jalen, Kalen, Leyland, Zalen, Salen, Kalen, Valen, Balin, Nalen, Malin, Malin. Ah, it was a Malin person that approached me. Huh. I mean, I liked the A there, but it doesn't have to be there, of course.
Yeah.
But if it isn't there, so it has to be in one of these two spots. So that does also mean that it would have to end in an A, which I'm not saying it can't happen, but I do kind of like the A there. What with allay? Relay, talay, palay. Yes, parlay, but I'm not sure if that's even spelled with an E, and it's also too long. Salay, falay, galay, halay, chalet. Shayley? No. Kale. Zale, Xale, Kale, Vale, Valet? 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 Ah! I mean, it's not one of the letters I mentioned as a possible ending, but that works.
Okay. What was that?
Valet, that's like someone who parks your car. I mean, I don't think it's technically the only meaning, but valet parking is the first thing I come up with, right? It's like, if you have like a hotel and you like pull up, just throw some of the keys and walk in, and they park your car for you.
Ah, okay, yeah.
That would, for example, be a valet. I think it's technically a medieval term, so...
Valley is spelled with 2 L's, right?
Valley, as in like a peaks and valleys?
Yeah.
Yes, that's spelled with 2 L's.
Okay.
And as far as I can tell, there's nothing speaking against the T.
I guess, yeah. I don't think so, no.
I was gonna say, we could also do something with veil, but I think veil is spelled with E-I, not with A-L-E. It's like V-E-I-L. The thing is, like, veil, it sounds so appealing, but no. I mean, I'm not saying we have to do this, but I'm saying this is the best.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't have anything else. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I was right about the A and the L, but the E is wrong! So, we have to, by necessity, have an E there, and an E there, right? Like, what the fuck?
There's so many E hints.
Wait, is there anything else that we have to have an E at? No, not as... And there's a couple where we still need one in the column or something, but not one where it's enough to be definitive. I mean, obviously, we weren't going to get the right answer if we had the E there. If with it being wrong and all. I guess we could now use this opportunity to actually get one of the E's and either the L or the T or both. As a matter of fact, this would be a good spot to put a T because of the intersection. Which is also not the place you'd want to put the L, which could technically go just about anywhere, except there, and where the E is. So...
which L are you talking about?
This one. There's an L hint in that square.
Oh, okay.
So...
Yeah.
I know I was looking at the row here with the T, but technically, we could do both hints at once, right? I mean, obviously... Okay, we could try both hints at once. We're not going to get a valid word because this column can't have a T. And this row can't have an L. But we could still technically get more info on both of them. Or we could try to get a legal word, but we have very few hints. So, I might be inclined to try for...
Not that many guesses left.
Yes. That is true. So one thing that came to mind is, based on this L hint up here by the N, it would make sense if we put an L in second spot, but the word I came up with LTE, which again is not going to be correct anyways because we're just digging for hints basically, would be alter, as in to change something, but or brief or alternate sometimes as well, but the A can't work.
Yeah.
So that's...
Wait, why can't it? Oh, yeah, because of the... Yes.
If you want to test something with LTE in the middle, it's going to be pretty difficult anyways, because if I'm thinking ilt, however you want to pronounce that, alt, yult, alt-t, like, alter is the only one that comes to mind that actually works. Alt.
Yeah, no, let's go with that. I do like it. I mean, the A is unfortunate, but we get so much info out of it.
I mean, I guess we could still get info about where an A could be in, especially the column, but I don't love this because it does... I mean, I guess it nails 2 letters, but it doesn't give us that much. Well, then again, if that word ends in "nal," that would be very useful to know, I suppose. And you know what? Can I just try and see if it somehow works with another vowel? Just to see.
Sure.
Because it doesn't cost us anything to try that.
Do we have A hints anyway?
Okay, that was a stretch, but... Okay.
Yep.
I mean, I guess I'm down for it. I don't want to drag this on for too long.
Yeah. Sure, let's go. That is a lot.
I mean, the R was a lucky break. The L, I almost expected to hit this one. The T, I mean, I was also expecting the T to hit. I mean, I wasn't as keen on it, but I wasn't as certain of it. But yes. Okay, let's see. L can't go... It has to be in one of the first 2, right? We can't... In the second column, there has to be an L. It can't be there because of the hint, it can't be there because of the hint, it can't be there because of this. But we don't have anything, we have the L pointing there, so it's likely... Well, it's actually not as likely there, it's more likely to be at the top, because... Oh no. Sounds weird. All null. It's more likely to be. All null, you'll null, ill null, all null. L now, ill now, all now, ill now, you'll now. I mean, I can't come up with anything that sounds plausible with L and AL. So it's more likely that it's up there and this word doesn't actually contain another. I'm going to put it down as likely there.
Yeah.
But did this give us anything else interesting to look at? I don't think so. It gives us a bunch of prohibitions, but none that are extremely useful. Oh yeah, there can't be a T right there, but I guess there could be one there. Which, no, there's one there already, so that doesn't need to be the case, but...
So where do you think the E is gonna be in the second row? Can be in both places, right? Pretty much equally likely.
Well... How many words start with an E and then have nal at the end versus end with enal, right? I like enal better, like in penal or in Actually, penal is the only one I come with right offhand, which is annoying because that doesn't work, clearly. Renal? Oh yeah, like a renal gland, right? That's a thing. So I guess renal is a word. Penal, renal, penal, senile? No. Senile? Senile? No. Senile, but that's different. Phenol? Fennel, but that's a type of tea, but I think it's spelled with a double N, isn't it? Oh no, it's spelled with an E at the end as well. It's fennel with a F-E-N-N-E-L or something. Genal? Genal is the word, right? Kenal, no, Jane.
Is it?
Genal, no, Kenal, Kenal, no, Lenal, Lenal, no, Zenal, Zenal, no, Xenal, Kenal, no, Benal? Banal would work, but that obviously doesn't because of the A. Minal? Maybe. Okay, and then inversely, Camnal, Memnal. Oh wait, Exnal, Evnal, Ernal? No, I don't think so. Like kernel is a word, but Ernal I don't think is, and it's not even sure if kernel is spelled. And then it's with an E as well. Etnal, anal, oinal, anal, aional, epnal? Epnal? I don't think so. I mean, that doesn't work anyways. Anal, esnal, efnal, agnal, anal, anal, ecnal, elnal, esnal, exnal, if you will, eknal, ebnal, emnal, emnal. No, I'm relatively, just from what I've gone through, just by like trying to mentally brute force all possibilities with the E, I'm fairly confident in putting the E there.
Okay.
I can't guarantee it, of course, but
yeah.
Also, as an added bonus, if the L up here is correct, then having it followed by a vowel makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the other thing. So I actually really like the E there. I've said that before and I was wrong with things, so obviously take it with a grain of salt, but
I would then like to start this word with an E, if possible, to test that.
I would very much not like to start this word with an E because it literally can't start with an E, and we really need some guesses right now to get correct. Maybe?
Yes, but that would increase our chances to guess the second row correctly.
I mean, what did I say? I mean, I said there wasn't that many, right? G, maybe. P obviously is already excluded. R. Emma would have to guess, but that sounds plausible. But yeah, mostly R and G is the first letter, and then enal seems pretty fixed already. If we want to guess
I guess, yeah.
It would make more sense to guess it in last position. Or even in second, for that matter. Because then, like, we might as well actually hit it. And it'll still either point at us or not point at it. It's alright if we start it doesn't give us any additional information because we already know there has to be an E in both columns anyways.
Oh yeah, never mind. Yes.
So, if anything, we would have to put an E in second to try that. But if we assume that it is G or R, then we could also try seeing if there's a word that makes sense in that context. Right, like, is there a word that has an G I in there? Is there a word that has R-I in there? And it can't start with an A or an E, right? So
agile.
Sorry,
Yeah, but agile.
I mean,
yeah.
It's besides the fact that like half the letters don't work, it would technically work. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, it can't even be Yuri either, so it would have to start with an I or an O or another consonant, which is actually with R it would be possible to be something like, I mean, again, it doesn't work because of the first letter, but print, right? So.
Oh yeah. How about we try glint then for the first row or something?
Oh yeah, glint for the first row. That's nice, actually.
Oh, actually, no, never mind. The T can't go into the last place.
Yes, that is true. Can we do something else with the glide? Oh no, these. The
climb.
I mean, then we're not checking for G or R anymore in the first column, but
yeah,
it is still a word that would fit. As a matter of fact, it's one of the very few words that would fit.
How likely would be the last
To start
column
with BL,
though with a B? Yeah.
I mean, normally I would say not very unlikely, right? Like bloat or something, but with the ER at the end, brings up the question of what do we put after the L, right? So it's bull, I would assume that a consonant, that a vowel sound comes next, right? So we either.
Yeah.
Because. Right, that sounds wrong. So it could be bluer. No, it can't be actually. No, U is illegal. Forget it. Also,
Yep.
ending with
it is. Wait, what? Why?
Up there.
Yeah, I see. Yeah.
So bluer would have been possible if it weren't for the U. Also, word ending in U would have been the next question, right? Blyer seems like a stretch. Bleer, is that a word? Is bleer? No, it can't be anyways because of the E hint there. It's no E in that row.
Yes.
So it can't be an A. Would have to basically be a Y. A Y. I don't know if Blyer with a Y is a word, but it sounds like it could be. And ly as an ending is perfectly legit. I'm not saying that makes it very likely, but it makes it vaguely plausible.
Mm-hmm.
Is it like ly a lot better than I do li? Or lo for that matter, although blower without a W, it doesn't really sound that plausible either. Of course, if it's a loan word, it could be just about anything, right? That's also always a problem. Because English in particular, with keeping the spells of loan words intact, which I like from a linguistic standpoint, but I also sometimes don't like from a spelling standpoint. You know. I mean, I guess we could try climb as just actually might be right.
There's also blink.
Oh. Don't even blink. Words starting with K. I mean, it's a thing, right? When I see this, my first thought is clear, but that's spelled with the C, right? And no A's, so clear, K-L-E-E-R. I don't know, that sounds like oh no, can't be any E's either, so it would have to be like clear. Honestly, just based on the last letter, B sounds more plausible to me than K.
Okay, like, what plausible letters do we have for that spot? Can maybe reverse engineer a
Right, so
word
for
for
the last
the
spot
first
specifically-
row with that. Yeah.
So, without necessarily thinking of every possible word, I or O would certainly seem like they would make sense from the column standpoint, but it would be very difficult to have words that terminate in those letters. Y seems like a stretch. So we're mostly looking at consonants here. No. No. Tl feels very Mesoamerican, not very English. Pl? Well, P is not legal, so it doesn't matter. Sl, like in slide, but it's also not legal, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Fl, F would totally work. Like flyer. As a matter of fact, flyer is a word, right? With a Y. Like a flyer you hand out.
Yes.
Gl, like in glide or something, like that works. Hull. That sounds like some sort of foreign language. I couldn't tell you which
And
one.
cliff is totally a word.
Oh, yes, cliff is a word. Oh, and then, yeah, false. For the flyer and false, right?
Yep.
For the columns. I do actually like this. I think we should try it.
Hey.
We did a thing! Took us long enough. Okay. Now, that E that I wrote down, I believe... Oh, no, it's still technically not fixed in place because it could have been the last spot, technically. But it's much more like... Actually, no, it isn't. Oh, no, it could still be in the first place there. So there could be an E there and an E there, or there's the E there that I marked. I guess... we could either try the ones I think could work that end in E and AL to just make doubly sure that they are actually words. Or we could try to see if we come up with one of those and then come up with an alternate ending to get even more info out of it. But then risk that it's not even a recognized word to begin with.
Do we even have anything we want info for that we can like actually formulate something for?
I mean, we could always just... I mean, we don't have that much information for the second column to begin with, right? So just having more info on that would probably be a start. We do know there's an N somewhere in there, though, which is actually interesting. Huh. Could go in both spots. I mean, do we just want to try if some words exist?
I guess,
wait, actually, wait. We overlooked something very important here. The letter...
Which is?
Right here has to also be in the first column, right? So if I put a G there, for example, because I said genal might be a word I think could be, it's like CGI. I mean, that's nice and all, but not in the beginning of a word, right? So that way, I said M might be plausible, which I think SME, like I'm calling that a stretch, right? So R seems like the best guess. Like crime, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree.
In punishment. So, if it is an R, which now, I'm not saying I'm guaranteeing it, but I'm fairly confident in that, honestly.
Yeah, no.
Now we can
see likely.
If there's a word that starts with RE, that maybe, say, has an N in one of the last two spots, right? And then try to get some info on the column. Oh. Most of them I'm coming up with are too long, like retina and retain, which is actually an anagram of retina, which is not very helpful.
Would also be helpful if we test for L.
Oh yeah, I mean that
not
should be
just
easier.
N.
I was gonna say relay, but that obviously doesn't work for various reasons. Mostly because we're testing the L where we already got it. Well, really, and that's double L, isn't it? No, realm. I mean, realm tests for the L. I don't think we can test for both L and N. I can tell you that much. Well, actually, doesn't
We assume that the
wait,
first
the L-
letter is an L instead of an R.
What? Oh, the first letter. Lenal.
Yeah, because it's Cliff in the first row.
Okay. Wait, where are you trying to go with this?
Oh, never mind.
Because we literally
the first
tried that
letter is an L.
in that spot, obviously.
Yes.
So,
no. Because it's an L, we already have one L in the column. We don't have to test for it in the bottom two spots.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. As a matter of fact, I just remembered that the first two spots are the only ones where it's legal to begin with, right? So can't be here and can't be here because we already tried, and it can't be here because of this. So
True. Yeah.
So yeah, that is. So then we would want something that ends with that either ends or it either has the final or semi-final letter being an N, which actually is kind of difficult. I got one that works.
In.
I mean, also, if we assume
It is
that RE is correct, which I think E is already set in stone. Oh no, E is virtually set in stone, and the R is fairly confident as well. We might as well try this, which does definitively tell us where the N is as well.
Yeah.
I honestly can't come up with anything that's much better than this. Or, I mean, on top of my head, I can't come up with anything that's better than this.
Yeah. Let's go for it.
Bonus guess, and the N was correct as well, and no G's, which I guess is good to know at this stage. So we know that this word right here is enter, because that's the only other spot that the E can go. Also, enter is not a word on its own, and that was about the only option they had to begin with. But this is the word at the bottom row is enter. We are thinking that this is flyer, and that is not where the Y is. I'm just so used to it being there, but it's actually there because it's a QWERTY keyboard. Hey, so since Furby Fubar sometimes does things that we suggested, option to switch to a QWERTY keyboard, please. Thank you. I know it's like such a nitpick for the screen keyboard to have like two specific letters switched, but that could be the next setting. And then this one I was thinking could be an S.
I can do that myself. I'll probably do it right after the podcast.
Oh, I can actually just click on it again and then switch to type hint without me having to retype the letter. That's cool.
That's nice, yeah.
So
very considerate.
This is one of those things that like barely matters because I can generally work with a QWERTY keyboard as well. Though I do struggle more so with it when it's not the letters, right? When it's like, oh yeah, where the fuck is my plus sign and stuff like that? Where it's like, I don't know. Where are the slashes? So Sergej, Oh yeah, I mean, I want to say this is an M. Because right now, I'm basically trying to solve this entire thing mentally, or as much of it as we can, because there's still 2 letters missing here, and there for that matter. And I would like to not use up more of our guesses, basically. We have this 2x2 grid that we still kind of have to solve, assuming that my 3 guesses are correct. So there has to be an L in that row, which we have. And there has to be no T's, no E's, no N's, but that doesn't help us. This row needs to have an E, which it has, and no L's, no A's, no F's. Okay, fair enough.
Basically only have negative information.
Yeah, besides the ones that we already have, yeah, as I said. No, that I is also, we already have that placed. That L is placed already. Yeah, we just need information. But it's a 2x2 grid, right? So we have to make it work for all the words. So we should be able to still Sudoku this out, I guess.
Yep. Let me write down all the possible letters that can fit in these spots.
I mean, lemon would work for the second column. Which, if that is correct, would then tell us what starts with
imply.
IM and ends with LY, and what starts with MO and ends with SE. Sorry, what did you say?
It would perhaps imply that the P is the center.
Oh, because we already know there has to be a P in this column, because it can't go anywhere else, assuming our other guesses are correct, and it can't be this column. So we're saying this is imply, this is lemon, and then this is input, and this is mouse.
Yep.
Damn!
I like that.
So, well, I mean, we can't really get around the fact that we have to type either imply or input. Wait, actually, can we? No, we can't. There's no way we can. And we can write something that ends in MPUY. I'm gonna go with that's a no. So I'm gonna go with imply because it's longer, or well, it has more missing letters. Also, it gives us 2 bonus guesses. Yep. So yeah, and then let's type the correct answer in here, which ironically enough is false, or actually much better, let's have a mouse, because that solves 2 of them at once. I almost was an idiot here, which wouldn't have really mattered, but bonus guess, it's like goes nuts with the bonus guesses. And then let's... Yay! Yes, I randomly typed the first 5-letter word that starts with E in there, because that came to mind because there was really no reason not to.
Hey, we win.
We win!
With 6 guesses left.
Look,
from the 3 that we had before we started.
To be fair, right? I feel like with the weeklies, the guesses always get tight before you all of a sudden it starts all falling in place. We said that last time we played one of these, where it's like, at first, it seems like we barely have anything, and we are like out of guesses almost, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, this one. And as the grid fills in, it becomes a lot more easier to figure out the rest of this. So,
oh yeah.
Let's have a look at screenshot mode briefly. Yay, this is what it looks like. And then let's close this. Cliff, renal, imply, mouse, enter, crime, lemon, input, false, and flyer. There's only one word in there that I would consider
renal, actually.
Difficult, technically, which is renal.
Yep.
Which, like, that's a word, okay? But, like, the other ones are pretty easy. I mean, imply is not exactly a word that I would immediately think of. I mean, I know you did, but I wouldn't have. But otherwise, I think those were relatively
sorry?
easy. I said imply is not a word that I would necessarily think of at first, but... It's a word that I very much know, but I wouldn't necessarily think of it.
Yeah.
When I'm trying to come up with words, but you obviously had them very quickly. And then renal is the only difficult word in this, so I think this one was also overall not that difficult, despite the fact that we did clearly struggle with it. But then again, it is also 10 words. Renal. Of, relating to, or in the region of the kidneys.
Mm-hmm.
All four pertaining to the kidneys, in the region of the kidneys. The suprarenal capsules, see under capsule. I knew there was a renal gland in the human body. I just wouldn't have been able to tell you what it does or where it is. I just knew that it exists. Why do I know it exists? I don't know. I've heard it somewhere, sometime, in some context, and I guess I retained it. I mean, I
didn't know it was a thing.
When there is like the occasional difficult word in there. But specifically, if I like actually, at least in some capacity, know that word, because if I started to guessing letters just in what sounds plausible, it's always a bit iffy. But I do like being challenged, even though I feel like even if you put like 5 of the I was gonna say 100 most common words, but I don't know if there's even that many 5-letter words in there. But even if you put like of the 1,000 most used words or something, I think it would still be difficult.
Probably, yeah.
But yeah, no, this was a good round. I like this. Let's ask some good questions in our segment, Good Questions to Ask, which is, of course, courtesy of CosAsWorld.com. I say courtesy of, they don't know that we're doing this. So, what is the most amazing slow-motion video you've ever seen? I don't know.
No, I haven't seen that many.
I mean, slow-mo guys, right? Like, it's gotta be something from slow-mo guys.
Yeah, but I don't really watch them.
Slow-mo guys. I've watched a couple of them. I mean, I don't like regularly watch them or anything, but
I mean, a lot of videos.
Hey, I didn't need that to play right now. Yeah, no, I'll probably.
I mean, a lot of
post.
videos, especially the ones with higher production values, have slow-mo sections in them. So do we count that in or not? Like, what do we do with that?
I mean, I was trying to see if any of the slow-mo guys videos, and I sorted by most popular really quickly to see if like any of those had been ones that I've watched, and if any of those particularly stood out to me. But honestly,
I know. So you remember my fact about the 4th fastest man-made object ever to exist?
Maybe.
The manhole cover with the atom bomb tests and stuff.
Oh, yeah. I do vaguely remember that, yes.
Where the manhole was captured on a single frame of a 1,000 FPS camera.
I mean, that is...
I'm gonna go with that.
That is very impressive. Not necessarily visually impressive, but it's just like, whoa.
Yeah.
So just from very briefly scrolling through the slow-mo guys channel page sorted by most popular, the one that I remember seeing that was also very interesting is the record one, where they spin a record 2 pieces. So that's at least what it says.
I remember seeing something with a CD.
I don't remember if it might have been a CD that I saw, but I was like, was it actually a record there? But I saw something to that effect, and that I think is probably one of the more interesting ones that I've seen. If you think like slow-mo guys and stuff like that, because a lot of stuff they've done, like, oh yeah, like balloons and shit, it's like, whatever. I honestly, seeing balloons pop in slow motion, it was kind of interesting the first time when I saw it, because it's just kind of interesting to know how they pop, but like, it's not really that.
Same with glass shattering and stuff.
Yeah. I don't know. Which celebrity do you think is the most down to earth? I have no idea.
I don't know.
It's one of those things where
no clue whatsoever.
I don't really engage with celebrity culture to that degree, right? It's not that I don't know anything about celebrities at all, but I don't really watch like interviews and stuff. I mostly know celebrities from just what they're actually famous for. And so if I know a celebrity, which in most cases, you know, actors and musicians maybe, as actors and musicians, that doesn't tell me how down to earth they are. So it's very difficult to say. I mean, I would say as a general trend, probably the less famous they are, the more down to earth they most likely are. As a general trend, not necessarily always. But
yeah.
That is really more of
probably
just
maybe
me inferring a possible trend that I don't know for sure exists. Like, I couldn't think of a specific celebrity that I've heard. I mean, you hear stuff about like, oh, this celebrity is actually kind of cool, like, they did this and that. But even then, in most cases, I wouldn't say they're necessarily that down to earth, right? Like, you hear like how Keanu Reeves is like a really cool guy, but it's like one of the stories I heard is like he gave all of his stunt doubles motorcycles, right? It's like, is that really a down to earth thing to do? Like, it's cool that he thinks of the people that he works with, but also like no one has that amount of money. I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
but it's like, I don't know, right? I guess big YouTubers probably, because they are just kind of, for most of them, just are like regular people that happen to get big, and some of them haven't had it go to their head, I think. But even then, I only know what they upload to YouTube. I don't even follow I don't even follow anyone's other social media, so. And even then, it's just what they want you to see, so. It's very. I think the real question here is, how would you even determine that, right? Because even if they do stuff that seems down to earth, you still have to have a very holistic picture of a person, and depending on how good they control their PR, it's very difficult to actually get that.
Yeah.
What would be the worst thing to hear as you are going under anesthesia before heart surgery? What was the one I heard where it was like, oh, I really hope this is going to work. This is my first time. That's probably...
Yeah.
I mean, I think, I don't know what like the individual thing to hear is, but the worst thing I feel like that could happen, besides dying, which, you know, I mean, like, you're going under, you're going unconscious, and then eventually you're dead, right? There's no real difference there. You just never wake up. It's bad, but I feel like in that moment it wouldn't be the worst thing. But the worst thing I can really think of that you would like remember after the fact would be if the anesthesia doesn't work, right? Because there's two things they give you. One that knocks you out and one that makes you unresponsive.
Oh, yes.
Right? So it has happened.
Yes.
And it's not... It is uncommon in the grand scheme of things, but there have been repeated cases of where people have been incapacitated by the drugs they've been given, but not rendered unconscious. And they were completely conscious during the entire procedure, and in some cases could feel the pain. Right? So...
Yes.
Like that is
not
the worst
fun at all.
thing that could happen. Besides, whether that or dying is worse, I honestly can't say. I mean, I assume dying because it's more permanent, but yikes. But I mean, I feel like, what is the thing they would say before that happens, right? Like, oh, are you sure dose the anesthesia, right? Like, you know, it's like, the reason why it happens is because no one noticed that something is going wrong, right? So, you would most likely not hear anything out of the ordinary when that happens.
Yep.
So, I don't know. Because there's like an entire room full of doctors there and possibly some observers. It's like, it's not like they're gonna like actively say that they're intentionally going to botch your surgery to kill you. Because even if there is a doctor that does that, which I think there was at least one case where a doctor did stuff like that, but like they wouldn't like announce it to the room. Like, I feel like all the bad things that could happen to you, you wouldn't know beforehand, just from what they're saying. Oh, I guess, well, no. I was gonna say, like, the whole counting backwards thing. Like, I guess if it keeps going, but, like, you're counting, not them, so it's not like... Right? Because I feel like, so, I've never been under anesthesia, but from what I hear and from what you see in movies, they're like, oh yeah, count backwards from 10, and they're like, just, like, 10, 9, and usually before you get to 1, you're already unconscious, right? So...
Yeah.
I guess if you could keep counting, which, I mean, if you could keep counting out loud, they know you're unconscious, but if you're like, and you go to 1 and you're still conscious, it's like, oh, something went wrong here. But that's not something you hear either. I can't come up with...
Continue counting backwards.
What?
Just continue counting backwards.
0, -1, -3, yeah. Because I was gonna say, like, the fire alarm, I don't know, but it's like, they just evacuate and probably wake you up, right? It's like, it's probably not that dangerous if there's a fire in the building, because, like, if it happens in the middle of the surgery, that would maybe be more dangerous. But at that point, you're already unconscious. So, I for the life of me, can't come up with anything that would be like that. I mean, I guess just terrifying would be something like, oops. it was like the last thing you hear is just someone in the room going, whoops. Like, that would be terrifying.
Yeah, it would be.
It doesn't have to mean anything. Right? Like, they dropped something, now they have to, like, someone has to pick it up, they have to disinfect, and like, blah, blah, blah. It's gonna be annoying, it's gonna mean that your surgery ends a bit later. Like, not a big deal. Because someone saying whoops doesn't have to mean something bad. What is the spiciest thing you've ever eaten? Chili peppers? I don't know. Like, nothing crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there was once an occasion where someone that we're acquainted with had bought some chilies that were supposed to be like particularly spicy, not like one of those like very famous ones, but just like relatively spicy in normal person terms. And I think I trusted one of those. But like there was a time when I was already eating a lot of spicy stuff anyway, so it wasn't that noticeable for me. I mean, like it was at a time when most of the time when someone would say, "Oh, this is spicy," I would not even notice it, and that was noticeably spicy to me at the time. But like that is about probably the spiciest thing I've ever eaten.
Yeah. Okay, let me look up the Scoville scale. Because I don't actually clearly remember that.
I mean, unless you know where on the scale the spiciest thing you've ever eaten is, I don't think it's that relevant, to be honest.
I mean, I kind of know roughly, but I forgot the order of magnitude, so I'm looking at a graph with examples to gauge where it might have been.
I don't think I've ever eaten anything like crazy spicy.
Yeah, me neither.
And again, especially context is important here, right? Because at the time when I was eating more spicy stuff is also the time when I ate the spiciest thing that I've probably ever eaten. And right now I'll be more sensitive to it again, so I probably wouldn't do that. It's the other thing.
Mm-hmm. They all compare it to peppers, and I have no idea how spicy certain peppers are.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Well, here's a much more interesting question. Honestly, I think this one is a really cool question. I don't know what the answer is though for me, so that's the other thing. But what is the most expensive thing you've ever broken? Because I feel like it's a very interesting question. I mean, I guess a car. That's probably the most expensive thing I've ever broken. But I think it didn't cost replacing the entire car to fix it. So in terms of the actual damage, it might not be the most expensive. But in terms of actual like the thing itself, if you consider the car one entity, it's probably the most expensive thing I've ever broken. And that technically in various ways, the only one of them was like me actively breaking it. Not on purpose, by the way. Bless you. But, you know, I once hit a fence with my car, which is like, I mean, the actual repair is like, I'm not actually sure if we were fixed to begin with, but like, you know, I had like a dent and a small tear in my bumper, right? Like, that's what it's for. Not that you're supposed to, that you drive, I mean, it was a whole situation, right? Like, the parking spot was frozen over. Well, actually, it was snowed in. It wasn't frozen over. It was like snow, like relatively deep. And so I was trying to drive out of it, backwards as well, I think. And so I couldn't get any traction. And so like I dug some of the snow behind my wheels, and then I was like, okay, let's just in one go get out of here, because if I stop, I'll get stuck again, right? And I was like, okay, this should fit.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like this close. I don't know how close it exactly was. Because I hit it with my bumper, it got damaged, and and the light broke. That's actually the bigger damage there. The light broke, so I had to replace the light. Actually, the light bulb itself wasn't broke, but just the casing, obviously. But you still have to get a new light.
Oh yeah.
So that's probably like I don't know if this is the most expensive damage I've ever had, but that's like, I've definitively caused this, and the car is, even though it wasn't an expensive car by any stretch, it's still like one of the more expensive things I've ever handled in my life, because, cars, just even the cheap ones, aren't that cheap. So that is a bad thing. Again, it must have been really close, because it must have ever so barely touched the bumper and the lights, because the light housing shattered, but and the bumper got a little scratched up, but that's the only damage that happened to the car, so it must have been really close. It was. I think it was driving backwards, and it was the front left corner. So it's I was pulling, and that was bad. I mean, the lesson from that is just don't park on snowy parking spaces. It's just not a good idea. It said no winter service, right? It was labeled, but the other parking spot, the other place I would have wanted to park, right next to it, where they did have service, was full, and so I had either the option to drive somewhere else to find a parking spot, which in the city is generally not that easy. I mean, by college, right? The university has parking spaces, and it would have probably been a place I could have found a parking space, but generally where I parked was a good spot, except for the snow. So, that was stupid on my part. Other things that happened to the car was just that the light machine, that's not the right term, is it? The thing that charges the battery, that broke. And that was not really my fault, it's just an age thing, right? So, alternator, it says here. Okay, sure. So the alternator in my car stopped working, and there was no indication of it until the battery was empty. At which point, of course, the car refused to drive. So that was fun. So, I mean, had it replaced, right?
Nice.
Probably also not... I honestly don't know what the exact cost was. I don't remember any of those exact numbers, but... also, my dad organized most of it. But yeah, no, it's that broke, right? That was bad.
I mean, you didn't break it.
I didn't break it, right? That's the thing. Because I wouldn't say that one was by no stretch my fault. I just used the car and eventually it broke, right? It was a used car to begin with. So the other one is very much in large part my fault. I mean, it's basically entirely my fault, but it also, once I was in the situation with the snow, it was it would have been avoidable, but I would have just had to pull around slowly, which means I might have gotten stuck multiple times in between. Then I would have had to steer one direction, the other direction to get out of the corner. It would have been possible, it would have been a lot more tedious, and I would have done it if I had known that I was gonna hit it. I just expected to fit, and again, it was really close. It just was really close the wrong way. I don't know. What have I broken?
So yeah, how do you even define to break something? If it's software.
I see where this is going.
Do you just introduce a bug? Do you make it inoperable?
I mean,
does it still count if you have Git and can reverse just like that?
I was about to say, if you can roll it back or you can very easily patch it, then it's probably not that bad. So this is more of a if it's one of those things where you brick software, then some important a big company relies on it, and every hour that they can work on it, they're losing literally thousands of dollars. Then even if it's just a temporary thing, I think it's gotta be pretty big of an issue at the very least. But the other thing is how do you find a thing, right? Because again, wrecking a car seems like a very car is expensive, but the actual damage isn't. So,
Oh yeah.
This question has so many definition questions attached to it.
So yeah, I guess my biggest thing that I've broken, or most expensive thing that I've broken is a project which I was tasked to update from PHP 5.6 to PHP 7.0 or 7.1, I don't remember. While it was still learning about PHP and stuff like that. Yeah, it was a huge project, and I obviously messed up because I was still learning.
I mean, as you do.
Yeah, so yeah. So that, I guess. And for some reason, my colleagues that are more experienced didn't validate my commits before pushing to production. Because, like, why would you? Yeah, so that's how my broken code ended up on production for, like, a fairly large customer. I mean, they didn't really, from what I heard, because I was not affiliated with this specific project at all beforehand, and after that even. They didn't really use it anymore, or like tangentially only, so it probably wasn't that big of a deal, but still.
I mean, yeah,
I think that counts as my most expensive thing that I've broken.
I mean, that's also additionally bad, because not just one of your things that you've broken, someone else's thing, which always, it's always worse, right? If you break someone else's stuff, it's always worse. Because if you break your own stuff, you just like repair it or get a new thing, or like you deal with it, right? It's fine. But like if you break someone else's shit, it's like, I broke a thing. I mean, yeah, honestly, the thing is, outside of the car thing, which is a bit nebulous in terms of like its actual cost, the only thing I can come up with that I broke that was like somewhat big is like a coffee machine. It wasn't even that expensive of one, so it's like it's still cheaper to replace that coffee machine than to fix the damage to the car. So it's like probably.
Yeah.
So it's not that big a deal in the grand scheme of things. I try to avoid breaking things, to be honest. That's kind of a policy of mine.
General, I would agree that that is a good policy to have.
Let's do one more question just to end on another even number. And what obstacles will be included in the world's most amazing obstacle course?
That is a weird question to ask.
I know, right?
Also, what do you mean by even number? This is question 37.
Yes! That means that we're starting with 38 plus. Yes, okay.
Ah, I see. How do you even define obstacle in this case?
That's a big question. And also, how do you define awesome, right? Because I feel like if you design the most spectacular obstacle course, it's probably going to one that most participants don't survive, right? Because inherently, the more dangerous something is, to some degree, the more spectacular it's going to seem. Well, not entirely, because there's some things that look lame but are very dangerous, and some things that aren't very dangerous that look impressive, but as a general rule. And so that is the question, right? But then, is it the most difficult? Because that's probably not it. Is it the most visually interesting, which would very likely be on the more dangerous side? Is it, like, are we going reasonable with this? Like, is it, like, the most interesting to watch as a competition, while also not killing anyone? Or preferably not injuring anyone in, like, a significant way? Minor injuries, to some degree, can't be avoided.
Should it be feasible? Like, should the thing be able? Should we be able to do the thing with our current technology, or is this like some sci-fi shit?
I mean, here's the thing, right? Is it awesome if you have an obstacle course and no one ever wins? Is it more awesome if someone wins it? Just maybe rarely, right? Because obviously, if it's one of those things where like it seems like it's within theoretical human limits, but it's not within, like, no one can actually do it though. So like people train for it and like try, and like after years you get someone to actually do it. Like that is going to be awesome, right? Like the moment when like the first person ever actually does it. I mean, the first thing that came to mind immediately was just, are you familiar with the Ninja Warrior concept?
I don't think so.
So there are these TV shows out there. There's plenty by now, but I'm not even sure which one is the original. Because I think it might be from Japan originally, but American Ninja Warrior might be one that a lot of our viewers are familiar with. I thought you might have been familiar with maybe with Ninja Warrior Germany. But so they are basically TV shows about athletes competing in obstacle courses. Like that's the whole format, right? And so they already have plenty of different obstacle courses with various obstacles in them. And I think the actual like the finale, and then they have this challenge, which I think it's from Japan, which is called Mount Midomiyama or something like that. I don't know. The point is, they have like this huge thing that they have to get up, and like that's also one of those where like
I mean, it ending in Yama suggests it being from Japan, yeah.
And actually means that the mount in the beginning is redundant, isn't it? Doesn't Yama just mean mountain?
Yes.
Because Mount Fuji or Fujiyama, but not Mount Fujiyama, that's redundant. So I know some Japanese. I don't know any Japanese. That's just like one of the very few things I know. But so I don't know exactly what it was called.
So basically, it's Takeshi's Castle with only the obstacle courses.
Yeah, but it's like I feel like Takeshi's Castle is mostly just regular people, right?
Yeah.
And so
I guess
Ninja Warrior is one of those things where I mean, sure, like for the regular when it's like an open season, like the regular show when it's like just open and like regular people do show up there, but they also like fail immediately. And so there are some people who like make it like their whole thing that they like do that show, right? And then there's, I mean, I don't know how it's other countries, but Germany there's like a celebrity edition, which whatever. There's like a team Ninja Warrior. There's they had another thing recently, I think, which was some other thing. But so there are specials and stuff. So some people will be like, oh, I'm in Ninja Warrior, then I'm in Team Ninja Warrior, I'm in this, I'm in that, and it's like they just show up in those, put some money here and there. I mean, I think most of them still have jobs besides that, but there are some people that like keep showing up, and there are some people that are like really specialized at it. Most of the people that are doing like really well are either already like climbers or like some other athlete that has like relevant skill. I think climbing is already a big one because they often do have a lot of also like more like arm strength and climbing coordination sort of stuff, but they also have like running up walls and shit like that. So yeah, I think that's the first thing that comes to mind is like an awesome obstacle course, because I do watch the show sometimes. I mean the German one specifically because like that's sometimes on actual TV. Which I do sometimes watch actual TV, believe it or not, like actual, like, I was gonna say cable TV, but it's actually satellite, but it is still the cable stations. Like, rarely, and usually with my parents, but,
fair enough.
But yeah, I mean, like, that is sort of when I think awesome obstacle course, that's kind of the first thing that comes to mind. But is there any particular obstacle that they use that I think is particularly interesting, or do I think there's anything they could do to improve it? I don't know. Let me look up. I mean, yeah, I don't know. Your turn. Say something.
I don't know. I guess we can, if we extrapolate that quite a bit, add Fermi's paradox to humanity's obstacle course.
I mean, you can go very abstract with this, yes. So the Wikipedia article disappointingly doesn't have a lot of images. I guess I could have just image searched it by one of the images. But I'm looking up American Ninja Warrior because that's also it's an American sports entertainment show based on the Japanese television reality show Sasuke.
Okay.
So yeah, that is it's called Mount Midoriyama. There it is. That's the final thing. Midoriyama. So yes.
So you basically had it.
Probably. I mean,
told me it
the
earlier.
thing that was really lacking, you see, was confidence.
Yes.
Let's see.
Because I think you had all the syllables in there.
I mean, possibly. Let's look up American Ninja Warrior. Why am I looking up the American one? I don't know. It's the most relatable to our audience. images. Why did I hit F12? Sorry.
All of you to assume we have an audience.
Oh, yes. Bold of me to assume we have not. So, I mean, I don't know, man. It's like a lot of very interesting obstacles. I guess it's not that surprising that
kind of looks interesting,
there's just a lot of images of people in the middle of some obstacle or other. Oh, this looks like they improvised a bit for the Corona times, huh? With like people in the background. Oh, you can barely see that.
Cannot tell. Yeah.
With like people in the background on screens.
Oh yeah.
Again, never actually seen the American version specifically, but I mean the concept is pretty much the same, right? Like you got there's more of a jumping one, but like as you can see, like most of them like hanging somewhere with their arms. So climbing advantages are like climbing backgrounds are advantageous. Okay, there's just swinging from one up to like there's just something in between obstacles. Yeah, there's like we have the board. It's just like ugh, God. Like, you know, I think you get the idea. As much as you can with still images.
It looks pretty cool.
I mean, it's just, yeah. I love how my point of like a lot of it is climbing is just like there has to run over like balls that are suspended on wires. You can tell it a little bit better if you survive. Like those are balls, and yes, they do rotate when you step on them. So
oh god.
I mean, listen, it ain't easy. Okay.
Yeah, I guess it isn't supposed to be.
It isn't supposed to. So yeah, that is the obstacle course. To date, only Jeff Britton, Isaac Caldiero, and Drew Dretchell have conquered Mount Midoriyama and achieved total victory. So only 3 people, specifically in the American version, have ever finished like up to the last level. And number of seasons, 14.
Bad.
I don't know if that includes upcoming or if that's just previous. Airing since 2009. 183 episodes. Now, granted, a lot of that is just qualification rounds. Does it say
that is a very low success rate.
Oh, All-Stars is the other one I was thinking of.
Makes it more interesting to watch.
There's a team version, there's an All-Stars version, and there's the regular. And then there's the celebrity version, which doesn't really matter because it's not the actual competitors that you would. Results. How does it? Oh, that's specifically is for. Does it say somewhere? Special episodes. Yes. Reception, international broadcast, and occasion spin-offs. American Warrior Challenge, obstacle course. I don't think it says anything here specifically about how many people.
I mean, it doesn't really matter, does it?
But suffice it to say, yeah, a lot of people. Not a lot have actually made it. So I feel like that already kind of hits on some of the points I said, right? Where it's like, you kind of want something that like very rarely gets beaten. And the Ninja Warrior format, I think, has the advantage that because there's so many rounds to it, like, until actually qualified to go to Mount Midoriyama, that even if no one that year actually makes it all the way, it's still like an impressive competition to watch, and you can still like root for people, and people can still do better than others, and so it's not just like pass-fail, right? It's not like either you make it or you don't. There's a very big difference if you like fall on the first obstacle or if you actually make it to the finale.
Oh yeah.
So, wanna go to songs?
I guess that's it. Oh, right, songs.
Songs. What is your
almost forgot about that.
Song of the week?
My song of the week is Aurora by K-391 and Rory.
I mean, it's not terrible. It's perfectly okay. Is that actually a recolored Aurora Borealis on the cover?
Don't know.
Because I feel like it's normally more
I
like
have no idea.
blue-greenish usually when you see it in pictures. But it does, like, shape-wise, it does seem like it looks correct.
I don't know if it looks correct. But yeah, the colors definitely don't match. Or like most likely, I'm not a specialist on them.
I mean, I don't know if it can look that way, but I'm just saying it normally doesn't.
Yeah.
Yes, that is... do you have anything else to say about that?
No, not really.
That was very insightful. My song of the week is called Que Sera Sera, Whatever Will Be by Pixies.
Que sera, sera. Whatever will be, will be. The future's not ours to see. Que sera, sera. What will be, will be.
Pretty interesting stuff. I feel like I've heard the melody before, but definitely not the lyrics.
Well, it is possible. Okay, if you have not heard the lyrics, I was gonna say it's possible that you've just heard a different version of the song because I think it was Doris Day who originally sang it. It is very different in as far as this has a very different feel to it. The other one is a lot more upbeat, and supposedly the explanation is that the original I've very briefly read in a YouTube comment. The original is in C major, and the cover here is in A minor, which is one of those, it sounds plausible to me because I've heard that before. Like minor chords tend to be more somber, and major chords being more upbeat and blah blah. I don't know that much about music theory though. Now, of course, this song has been the theme song of the series From, which is why I know it, and also why I picked this particular version. I've listened to the Doris Day version. It's like, it feels very, I don't know, it feels very generic. I mean, it's still very old school either way, but it feels very generic when it's upbeat. I don't know. I really like the feel of this version. I mean, maybe if I'd heard the other one first, I would feel differently about this, but that's just the way I feel about it.
I don't know.
So yeah. Also, if anyone's wondering, the cover image I used for the album is not technically related to the song because it was just the last album, and I don't think they ever actually released the song, like as a single or as part of an album. But I think it was just for the show, and I'm not sure if the show released a soundtrack or something. Like I found it online, but there's like no official like band associated cover image associated with it. Best I can tell. So that brings this episode of the Trash Podcast to a close. If you enjoyed this video, maybe consider leaving a like. If you didn't like it, and subscribe if you haven't already and want to not miss out on future uploads. Join the Discord for further contact with us. I think that's what I always say, something like that. Comments about, opinions relating to this. I don't know. I mean,
all the regular
stuff. Same stuff as always, okay? Sergej?
Yeah. I guess that's it.
That's it.